going on, Lakers Nation? Welcome back to Lakers News Fan Report, your number one source for everything purple and gold, where you get the freshest updates, the hottest trade rumor, and the most comprehensive analysis on our beloved Los Angeles Lakers. Before we dive into today's absolutely explosive content, make sure you're subscribed and that notification bell is turned on, because what I'm about to share with you today involves a potential blockbuster trade scenario that could completely reshape the Western Conference landscape and directly impact our Lakers' championship aspirations this season. I'm talking about a three-team mega deal that's been circulating in NBA circles, involving some of the league's most talented scorers and strategic contract maneuvering that could create a domino effect throughout the entire league. Trust me when I say you need to hear every single detail of this, because the implications for our Lakers are massive. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why this matters so much for our title hopes. Let me set the stage for you here, because context is everything when we're talking about trades of this magnitude. The NBA landscape right now is absolutely fascinating, with several teams facing critical decisions as we approach the trade deadline. You've got contenders looking to add that final piece. You've got struggling franchises trying to figure out whether to rebuild or retool. And you've got teams stuck in that dangerous middle ground where they're not good enough to compete, but not bad enough to get premium draft picks. These are the situations that create trade opportunities. And for a team like the Lakers that's always looking to maximize our championship window with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, we need to be paying attention to every single move that happens around the league, because it all affects us one way or another. Now, there's been a lot of speculation about what the Lakers might do before the trade deadline. We've heard rumors about potential targets, discussions about which role players might be available, an endless debate about whether we should stand pat or make a significant move. But what I'm about to break down for you isn't directly about a Lakers trade, at least not on the surface. However, and this is crucial, the ripple effects of this proposed deal could open up opportunities for us that didn't exist before. Sometimes in the NBA, the most important moves aren't the ones you make directly, but rather the moves other teams make that create openings for you to capitalize on. That's exactly what we're looking at. A potential three-team blockbuster that could shift the entire competitive balance in the Western Conference and potentially make certain players available who weren't available before. The team at the center of all this chaos is the Sacramento Kings. And if you've been following the NBA this season, you know they're in absolute turmoil right now. We're talking about a franchise that entered this season with playoff aspirations, with hopes of building on their recent success and establishing themselves as a legitimate force in the West. Instead, they've completely fallen apart, posting a disastrous 3-11 record that has them sitting at the bottom of the Western Conference standings. That's not just disappointing, that's catastrophic for a team that invested heavily in trying to compete. When you start a season that poorly, especially with the talent they have on that roster, it forces the front office to make some really difficult decisions about the direction of the franchise. The Kings are facing a crossroads moment, the kind of inflection point where organizations have to decide whether they believe in their current core or whether it's time to blow it up and start over. Based on everything I'm hearing from sources around the league, Sacramento is leaning heavily toward making significant changes. They're not just looking to tinker around the edges or make minor adjustments. They're exploring major moves that would fundamentally alter their roster construction and potentially set them up for a full-scale rebuild. And when teams get into that mindset, when they start seriously considering tearing it down, that's when star players become available. That's when blockbuster trades start materializing. And that's when savvy front offices like ours need to be ready to pounce on opportunity. One of the most prominent voices in basketball media, someone who's been around the NBA for decades and has connections throughout the league, recently proposed a massive three-team trade scenario that would address Sacramento's needs while also helping two other franchises achieve their respective goals. I'm talking about Bill Simmons, who floated this idea on his podcast. And let me tell you, when someone with his level of insight and connection starts talking about specific trade frameworks, you need to pay attention, because these aren't just random fantasy trades. These are educated proposals based on conversations with people around the league, based on understanding team needs and contract situations, based on knowing which players might actually be available. The trade proposal that Simmons laid out is complex, involving 3 teams and multiple moving parts, but it makes sense for everyone involved when you break it down. At its core, this deal would see the Sacramento Kings essentially waving the white flag on their current roster construction and pivoting toward financial flexibility and a potential rebuild. They would be trading away key pieces from their current rotation in exchange for expiring contracts that will give them approximately $70 million in cap relief after this season. That's a massive amount of financial flexibility that would allow them to completely reset their roster, chase free agents, or take on bad contracts in exchange for draft picks. It's the kind of move you make when you've accepted that your current path isn't working and you need to start fresh. Now, the 2 other teams involved in this proposed deal are the Los Angeles Clippers and the Boston Celtics, and both of them would be getting something specific that addresses their current needs. The Clippers, as everyone knows, have been absolutely devastated by injuries this season, particularly the season-ending injury to Bradley Beal that completely gutted their offensive firepower. They're desperately searching for scoring, for someone who can create their own shot and take pressure off their other offensive weapon. The Celtics, meanwhile, are dealing with luxury tax and looking for ways to get under the tax threshold without significantly hurting their championship chances. They need to shed some salary while still maintaining a competitive roster, which is always a delicate balancing act for teams in their position. So here's how this 3-team blockbuster will break down. And I want you to pay close attention because every piece of this matters. The Sacramento Kings would receive Anthony Simons from the Celtics, who's on a 1-year deal worth $27.7 million. John Collins from the Clippers on a 1-year contract at $26.6 million. And Bogdan Bogdanovic, also from the Clippers, on a $16 million deal with a team option for next season. All of those contracts either expire after this year or give Sacramento the flexibility to decline the option, which means they'd be clearing massive amounts of cap space heading into next season. That's exactly what a rebuilding team wants. Financial flexibility and the ability to start fresh without being locked into long-term money. The Los Angeles Clippers, in this scenario, will be receiving the player that makes this whole deal so fascinating and so relevant to us as Lakers fans. They would be acquiring Zach Lavine from Sacramento, along with Dario Saric to make the money work. Lavine is on a massive contract, $47.5 million this year with a $48.9 million player option for next season. But he's also an elite scorer who can create offense in isolation situations and provide exactly the kind of firepower the Clippers desperately need right now. For a team trying to maximize their championship window with their current core, adding someone of Lavine's caliber could be the difference between being a playoff team and being a legitimate title contender. The Boston Celtics, completing this 3-team puzzle, would receive Malik Monk from Sacramento. Monk is on a very reasonable contract, $18.8 million per year over 3 years, and he's been one of the most efficient scoring guards in the league. For Boston, this move accomplishes 2 things. First, it gets them under the luxury tax by trading Simons' expiring deal for Monk's longer-term but more affordable contract. Second, it actually gives them a solid rotation player who can contribute to winning basketball, so they're not sacrificing their competitive position just to save money. That's important for a team that's trying to contend for championships while also managing their financial obligation. Now, I know what you're thinking. Where do the Lakers fit into all of this? Why does this matter to us? Let me break it down for you, because this is where it gets really interesting from our perspective. If Zach Lavine gets moved to the Clippers in a deal like this, that completely changes the dynamic in the Western Conference. The Clippers would instantly become a more dangerous offensive team, which means more competition for us in the playoff race. But here's the thing, and this is what I want you to really focus on. When major trades like this happen, they create secondary and tertiary effects throughout the league. Other teams start making moves in response. Players who weren't available suddenly become available, and opportunities open up that didn't exist before. Think about it this way. If Sacramento commits to a full rebuild by making this trade, what happens to their other players? What happens to guys like De'Aaron Fox or Domantas Sabonis if they decide they don't want to be part of a rebuilding project? Those are the kinds of situations that could potentially benefit the Lakers if we're positioned correctly. Additionally, if the Clippers add Lavine and significantly improve their roster, other teams in the West might feel pressure to make their own moves to keep up, which could create a seller's market where we might be able to acquire role players or depth pieces at more reasonable prices. Because teams are scrambling to make deals before the deadline, there's also the financial aspect to consider. Lavine's contract is enormous, and if he ends up on the Clippers, that's going to create some serious luxury tax implications for them moving forward. That might force them to make other moves to shed salary, potentially making some of their role players available. The same logic applies to any team that makes a big move like this. There are always downstream effects, always secondary transactions that have to happen to make the numbers work or to balance out the roster. And that's where a team like the Lakers, with our combination of tradable contracts, young assets, and draft capital, can potentially swoop in and take advantage of situations that other teams create. That takes courage from a front office, the willingness to admit mistakes and pivot rather than stubbornly sticking with a failing plan. The Clippers will be going all in on their current window, taking on massive financial obligations in the hope that adding elite scoring can put them over the top. The Celtics will be balancing competitiveness with financial responsibility, trying to maintain their championship contention while also managing their tax burden. These are three completely different approaches to roster management, and watching how they play out will be instructive for how we think about our own situation. For the Lakers, our philosophy has always been clear. We're in win-now mode as long as we have LeBron James and Anthony Davis healthy and playing at an elite level. That means we need to be aggressive in pursuing any opportunity to improve our roster, whether that's through trades, buyout market additions, or creative roster moves. We can't afford to waste a single season of this championship window, which means Rob Pelinka and the front office need to be on the phone constantly, exploring every possible avenue to make this team better. Deals like this proposed three-team trade, even if we're not directly involved, affect the ecosystem we're operating in and potentially create opportunities we need to be ready to exploit. One thing I want to emphasize is that this specific trade proposal is just that, a proposal. It's not a done deal. It's not even necessarily being actively negotiated right now. But the fact that someone as connected as Bill Simmons is floating, it publicly suggests that there are real conversations happening around the league about Sacramento blowing it up, about the Clippers needing scoring, about Boston managing their tax situation. Where there's smoke, there's usually fire. And even if this exact trade doesn't happen, something similar very well might. That's why we need to stay informed, stay engaged, and understand how all these moving pieces could potentially affect our Lakers. The trade deadline is always one of the most exciting times of the NBA season because anything can happen. Teams that look like sellers suddenly decide to buy. Players who seem untouchable suddenly become available, and deals that nobody saw coming materialize out of nowhere. As Lakers fans, we need to be prepared for all possibilities. Maybe we make a big move ourselves. Maybe we make smaller tweaks to the rotation. Or maybe we stand pat and trust in the roster we have. Whatever happened, understanding the broader trade market and knowing which players might be available is crucial for evaluating our own teams. Decisions. So let me bring this all together for you. We've got a potential three-team blockbuster on the horizon that would send Zach LaVine to the Clippers, give Sacramento financial flexibility for a rebuild, and help Boston manage their luxury tax situation. This deal, if it happens, would significantly alter the competitive landscape in the Western Conference and potentially create secondary opportunities for teams like the Lakers who are paying attention. It demonstrates that star-level talent is available if you're willing to be creative with contracts and willing to take on financial obligations. And it shows us that the trade market is heating up as we approach the deadline, which means the Lakers need to be ready to act if the right opportunity presents itself. Now I want to hear from you. Lakers Nation, what do you think about this proposed three-team trade? Do you think Lavine would make the Clippers significantly better and create more competition for us in the West? Should the Lakers be exploring similar big moves, or are you comfortable with our current roster construction? If Sacramento does commit to a rebuild, are there any of their players you want the Lakers to target? And most importantly, how aggressive do you think Rob Pelinka should be as we approach the trade deadline? Drop all your thoughts in the comments below because I genuinely want to know what Lakers Nation is thinking about all of These potential moves. This is exactly the kind of analysis and insider information you get here on Lakers News Fan Report. We don't just report the news, we break down what it means for our Lakers. We explore the implications and the opportunities, and we keep you informed about everything happening around the league that could affect our championship chances. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. We're going to be all over the trade deadline coverage, bringing you breaking news the moment it happens and providing the analysis. You need to understand what it all means. Smash that like button. If you enjoyed this breakdown, share this video with every Lakers fan you know. And let's keep this conversation going in the comments. The next few weeks are going to be absolutely wild as we approach the trade deadline, and I'll be here bringing you every update, every rumor, and every analysis you need. Let's go Lakers. Let's get that 18th championship, and I'll see you in the next video.